Hi, part two for the introduction to medical terminology. I know I've already lectured and posted medical terminology part one, but I really feel it's important to go over the origin of medical terminology and just get a better grasp for it. So we're going to go ahead and go through part two, which is the PowerPoint that's attached to your textbook directly, Introduction to Medical Terminology. So the origin of medical terminology is that most medical terms derive from Greek and Latin words. Romans developed the medical procedures, diagnoses, and treatments and recorded them in Latin. The Greeks developed medical studies and recorded findings in the Greek language. Some terms that are associated with a physician or person who discovered a particular part of the anatomy or a disease, we call these eponyms. Fallopian tubes are named after Fallopius, and cesarean section is the manner in which Julius Caesar was delivered, thus the combination of that term. So we talked about eponyms a little bit in the first lecture, but it is where the procedure or part or whatever is named after the person which invented it or came up with it. Prefixes, we know, are words that are found at the beginning of a medical term. They change or modify the word root in the medical term. They indicate a location, a presence, or absence of something, quantity, size, frequency, or position. And when they're separated from the term, they often are followed by a hyphen. So for instance, hyper has a hyphen at the end, and hyper means excessive, more than normal, or above average. There are exceptions for prefixes. They're not usually altered when added to a combining form or a word root. So review the exceptions. If combining form or word root begins with a vowel, select the most appropriate prefix that is applicable that ends in a consonant. Another exception is changing the prefix to make the medical term easier to pronounce. Suffixes. Suffixes are added to the end of the word and it completes a medical term. They indicate what's being done, what's wrong with it, what's the disease, what's the procedure, etc. When written as a separate component, they always begin with a hyphen and then the suffix itself. So here's a visual that kind of helps to make sense of hydrophobia or hydrophobic. So hydro means water, which in this situation would actually be a word root. And then phobe is also a word root, water, abnormal, fear. And then ick is pertaining to, which is actually your suffix. So hydrophobic means pertaining to an abnormal fear of water. And this kind of shows you how to build those terms. Word roots and combining forms. It applies to a part of the anatomy. Terms can have more than one word root. Combining forms are word roots with a vowel added. We talked about this. Makes words easier to pronounce. Most common vowels are A, I, and O. You can use E, U, and Y very occasionally, but you're not going to encounter those a lot in medical terminology. So to break a medical term apart, you need to figure out what the suffix means, identify the prefix's meaning, and then identify the word roots and combining forms. When all word components are put together, a very basic definition of the medical term is formed. So here this shows you hypogastric, hypogastric, pertaining to below the stomach because ick means pertaining to, gaster means stomach, below means, or hypo means below. So you actually would start here with ick, you would go back to hypo and then to gaster. In your textbook, excuse me, there are tables 7-1, 7-2, and 7-3 that are very valuable. They give you the information that you need. As a matter of fact, they're actually part of your assignment was to copy those tables. There's also cheat sheets posted in your AAS section that have these word parts, suffixes, and all that posted. But you want to remember the rules when you're building a medical term. You need to have your combining form when you're putting two word roots together. You need to make sure that you're using the proper suffixes, prefixes, etc. Spelling. This is something that I cannot stress enough. Spelling is mandatory. You have to be able to spell a medical term correctly. You misspelling a medical term can mean the difference in a diagnosis or treatment. You could hurt someone very badly if you don't follow the rules and don't spell these terms correctly. For example, medical terms can sound the same or similar. Ileum and ilium are two different parts of the body. They're two different things completely. But if you swap them, that could really cause problems. Forming plurals from singulars. In everyday English language, add s or es. Many medical terms derive from Latin, Greek, or foreign origins, and their rules are more complex. In your textbook, there is a table 7-4 for basic rules that for changing singular medical terms to plurals and the applications of each. So here you can see, we talked about this. Oh, let me move this down. We talked about this a little in the other presentation, but you've got phalanx, which is just one finger bone, but phalanges refers to multiple finger bones. I hope this answers some questions. If you have any, let me know if I can help you, and I'll see you soon.